All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this artist talk with Esteban Pérez. Just before we get started, I would like to acknowledge that Griffin Art Projects is situated on traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Stolo nations. We're honored and grateful to undertake our work here. And as we meet here in this virtual space, if you would like to share a land acknowledgement for where you're joining us from in the chat, feel free to do so. Just a few quick housekeeping notes before we get started with today's event. We do have live captioning enabled. So if you would like to see captions at the bottom of your screen, you can activate that by pressing the CC Live Transcription button at the bottom of your screen. Please note it's not perfectly accurate and it does struggle with names, both people and places, but we do hope it'll be helpful in capturing most of what we're saying here today. And also, if you're experiencing any technical issues with the Zoom interface, we are live streaming today's event on our Facebook page. As you can see the link there, so you can always join us there if you're experiencing any difficulties. So, I would like to just mention that today is the first resident that we're going to be joined with from a new residency in this Milkameen Valley. So this residency was created to engage with a bit of outreach to further Griffin's audience. As a recent graduate of Emily Carr's MFA program, Esteban Pérez was selected to take part in this residency, continuing Griffin's commitment to providing studio space and outreach to emerging artists. So without further ado, I'll introduce today's speaker. Esteban Pérez was born in Quito, Ecuador. In 2021, he graduated from Emily Carr University of Arts and Design with an MFA degree. His work has been part of exhibitions such as Radical Reworlding at AHVA Gallery UBC, Triplete at Lugar in 2018, and Premio Brasil at the Centro de Arte Contemporáneo in 2017. And in 2019, he had his first solo show, Transitory, at Más Arte in 2019. He was selected for the Premio Brasil, Arte Emergente, an award funded by the Brazilian Embassy in Quito for the promotion of emerging artists. In 2020, he was the recipient of the Audain Travel Award in Vancouver. And in 2021, he was artist in resident at the Contemporary Art Gallery of Vancouver and at the aforementioned Milkameen Studio Residency organized by Griffin Art Projects. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of today's event. So if you do have any questions, you can type them into the Q&A dialog box, which you'll notice is actually separate from the chat function. And we'll circle back to those at the end of today's event. Please note that we are in a webinar format, so we can't see or hear you. However, if you would like to ask your question aloud, you can indicate so in your question or raise your virtual hand, which you'll also see on the toolbar, and we can unmute you for that portion. So yeah, I'll ask Esteban to go ahead and join us now, and we'll just jump right in.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nathaniel, for the introduction. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm really excited to share my experience at the Milkameen Studio Residency with you. And I guess I'll just start by sharing my screen. Okay, so I'm just going to start by talking about the project that got me to the residency. The name of this project is Earth Project, and I made it when I first arrived in Vancouver in 2019. So when I first arrived in Vancouver and I went to attend to Emily Carr, I realized that people were doing this land acknowledgement, and that was a very different concept for me, for where I come from. And I didn't know what it was, so I asked Connie Watts at the Aboriginal Gathering Center, and she explained to me what decolonization was. She explained to me the concept of the land acknowledgement and the unceded territory, and all of that information was very new to me. So she put me in contact with a Squamish artist. His name is Aaron, also known as Splash. And Splash agreed to do a collaboration with me where he took me to the forest in North Vancouver. And I asked him if I could collect some earth. And before that, he sang a song. He did like a Squamish protocol. We asked the earth, the forest, and the land for permission before collecting the earth. And that's a still of the performance where he's showing me this red cedar tree. And he was explaining to me that his people, they used to bury their ancestors underneath the red cedar tree. And that was like, again, I was just learning so much about Canadian history and this relationship of settler and Indigenous people, which I saw some relationships from where I come from, Ecuador. And that's why I was very excited to work with him and just to learn new Indigenous ways of knowing. This is another work that I did. That's the box of earth. And this work is called Earth Synthesizer. And I created this synthesizer at school where I just simply tried to listen to the earth. So this is connected to a speaker and you can listen to the frequencies and vibrations of the earth when it's moist. And sometimes the sound recalls the sound of a heartbeat. And this is another work that I did that emerged from the Earth Project. This is called Liquid Beings. And during our performance, our collaboration with Splash, he gave me this pigment from the red cedar. So I had it in my studio for like 2 years and I didn't know what to do with it. And then I returned to the forest to record the sound of the forest. And then I just start playing with this sound, like stretching time, reversing time, amplifying the sound. And then I created this sound composition. And I was trying to listen to other layers of reality or to other frequencies. And what I did was like, I just listened to this sound composition and then with the red cedar pigment, I created these drawings. It's a series of 5 drawings that are being displayed now at the Gordon Smith Gallery in Vancouver. Also, I forgot that the sound composition was playing in the same room where the drawings were being displayed. And this is the last project that I did, the last part of the Earth Project. This is called Liquid Length and is a 15-minute video where I created a sculpture. I created a sculpture out of bricks. So I made these small bricks and each brick was made out of a mix of the land that I collected with Splash and the unceded territory, which is the land that I collected from outside school. So every brick was made with a mix of these 2 lands. So I placed this sculpture back in the forest and I just recorded, I filmed how the rain, the snow, and the wind dissolve these narratives of the land. And I was trying to put the sculpture in a different time so the viewer can experience like another temporality, a natural time or a more than human time. And thanks to that project and thanks to Emily Carr and the Griffin Arts Foundation, I got the opportunity to go to this beautiful place, which is in Queremios, in the Similkameen Valley. And I spent 2 months there, just trying to do some work in relation to this other place, to this other non-urban place. And so the first thing that I did was to go on walks, to get familiar with the place, which is really, really beautiful. So I walked around the property. I went to the mountains. I walked close to the river, to the Similkameen River, where you had really nice encounters with animals like beavers, for example. And I think I'll have to mention that I'm from Ecuador, and all those animals and this landscape was very different to me and really, really interesting. Although it felt kind of familiar because of the mountains. So these are pictures that they were taken with the film with an analog camera. And I like the uncertainty of this device, because you can never tell if the photography is going to be good, or sometimes it has these effects that I really enjoyed. So it was like experiencing this other time outside the city, and also experiencing this old technology, which doesn't allow you to see the image right away, like when you take a picture with your cell phone. So I was really enjoying that time for slowing down and exploring new ideas. And I was just trying to move into a different direction to create different artwork, different from the previous one that I showed you from the Earth Project. And yes, I mean, I really enjoy, like, you can also see the stars during the night, which is something that you cannot do at the city. And it was like a sense of connection to this place. This photograph was taken with my other camera, and this is called ofrenda, which in Spanish means offering. So I guess, like, during these walks and trying to connect with the place, I felt like so much joy and that I needed to give back, give something back. So this is like my kind of offering to this place. It's another image of the mountain that was right next to the house, and just the element of the mountain was familiar to me because I come from Quito, and which is a city in the middle of volcanoes. So the presence of the mountain and the symbol, what the mountain means, goes back to the Inca Empire and to the indigenous people of the Andes. And it represented like this entity that has also subjectivity. So I approach these mountains in this place from the same perspective, like as an entity that has a subjectivity, and that I was in constant relationship. And I guess I'll have to talk about what I did during the residency. I was also, besides my walks and my documenting, I was doing some research about sound. And I was reading this book from Dylan Robinson. And in this book, he mentions like the difference between the indigenous sensibility and the settlers' sensibility, and how that encounter didn't allow for these two groups of people to understand each other because of opposite world views. So I guess that was very influential for me, and I saw a lot of similarities again with my situation as a mestizo artist from the global south, and my relationship to my indigenous heritage and to my Spanish heritage. So this is the place where I did the work. This is called the Ashnola Valley, and it's very close to where the house is. So I went there several times with the car because it was really big. And I found this spot. This is called the Ashnola River. And from the very beginning, like, I was inspired just by the name. In my mind, I was speculating on how this Ashnola represented some kind of like a science fiction planet with a different set of beliefs and different rules. So that's how I entered this space. And again, I have to mention that I'm from Ecuador, and I have never seen that ice on the river. And yeah, the winter and the cold weather is really is something new for me. So I was just like really happy to experience something new, a different manifestation of nature. So I took these pictures, and as I mentioned before, I was doing some research about sound and sound synthesis and the politics of sound. So I started to speculate on these shapes. In my mind, they were frequencies. And I thought maybe I can listen to these frozen frequencies. So what I did is I did a field recording of this layer of ice, but I put like a contact mic, and I was just trying to access to these frequencies, that in my opinion are like beautiful, natural graphic notations or graphic scores. And I was just trying to access to this. So I did a field recording from these layers, and then in my computer, I use granular synthesis in order to dissolve or to disintegrate this sound into granular pieces. So I would like to play the sound, if that's okay with you. And please let me know if you can listen. So I made like one of those compositions inspired by these images. So there's a relationship between sound and still image, and sound and this natural graphics course. So yes, I guess that was my presentation, and thank you so much for listening.
Great, thanks so much, Esteban. So interesting to see how you interpret the landscape. We are going to start our Q&A session. So if anybody in the audience has any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A dialog box. And I'll get us started here. Let's see. So I guess I was kind of mentioning this just now. Your practice seems to operate between the seen and the unseen using visual mediums such as photography and video, as well as the non-visual mediums like sound, which we just heard. Do these mediums inform or play off one another in your work? And how do you decide which method is best to capture these natural moments that you have in your work?
Yeah, thank you. It's a great question. I guess because of the research that I was doing, I tried to approach everything from the sound perspective, or from a listening practice, and then it's like a combination of the two, of the visual and sound. It's like when I see something that represents or evokes some kind of sound to me, then I capture it like in whatever way I think it's the best way to capture it. In this case, it was with photography. I did some drawings about those eyes notations, but I guess it didn't work. Yeah, it's like sometimes I was really hoping to do more work with drawing or with painting, but I guess it was just like, it worked well, just being a photograph. And yeah, I guess like I like that the tension between the still image and the sound.
And you did kind of briefly mention it throughout your presentation, as you were showing the book that you read. But for those of us who might not be familiar with the terms and theories surrounding sound and sound politics, I'm wondering if you could maybe get just like a quick, I know it's a bit of a big topic, but a quick overview of what that means and what you apply from sound politics into your work.
Yeah, I guess the book Hungry Listening mentioned this idea of a palimpsest, and just approaching a place as through this lens of the palimpsest. So a place has several layers of history and several layers of human relations. So I guess like, because I knew Ashnola and Similkameen Valley, they were like also indigenous land before the settlers arrived. I tried to approach the place from that perspective. So I guess I was trying to oscillate between different temporalities, like just speculate on how did this place used to listen. I mean, what were the sounds of this place before and during and after? So I guess I was trying to talk about temporality, different temporalities, and how each culture has its relationship to time and to place. So I was trying to explore all of that in this work.
We do have a question here from Landon McKenzie. She says, thanks so much for this articulate talk. Can you say more about the idea of temperature shift and say more about the studio indoors versus outdoors?
Mhm. Yeah, I don't really know what Landon refers to the temperature shift, but I guess I'm just gonna say that maybe it's my experience, like from coming from a different country that does not have a winter. So again, like, yeah, I cannot stand winter and ice and snow. Uh, but going outside the studio, I was trying to force me to be in this weather, in this temperature, and to feel it uh, with my whole body. I guess like walking through the space, through the place, I was trying to sense the whole place with my body. It was like an embodied way of thinking. And what was the second part of the question?
The studio indoors versus outdoors.
Yes, I guess like going outside the studio to, like I mentioned, like to get familiar with the place and collect objects. I remember one day I just collected a lot of bones from dead animals because again, that was like different to me. Uh, and collecting rocks or collecting flowers and things like that, or doing these field recordings of the river, of the ice, of the forest. But then I had to come back to the studio to experiment with what I gather, what I have collected, and just trying to think of what these objects mean and what the relationship to this embodied experience that I had through this walk.
Thank you very much. Now, you mentioned that you're not a huge fan of the cold weather, and I know you're currently back in Quito, Ecuador. You mentioned both through your answer about sound politics, but also earlier in your talk, you were speaking about how when you first arrived in Canada, the concept of land acknowledgements was new for you, and you connected with some local Indigenous people, including Splash. Now, I'm wondering how that continues to inform and maybe shifts your perspective now that you're back in Ecuador. And are you experiencing or thinking of things in a different way with those ideas in mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, I think that I learned how before that experience with Splash, and I learned like my relationship to the Indigenous people in Ecuador. There's so many Indigenous nations from the Amazon, from the Andes, from the coast, and there's like a huge history of pre-Columbian history and even like history of Indigenous people before the Incas. So I always had like an interest in that, but right now I'm like doing a little doing more research about it and just trying to be more mindful about my privilege and my relationship as a mestizo person, which means mixed, to the Indigenous people and to the legacy of Spanish colonialism. So yeah, it influenced my way of seeing my own relationship to my land. Yeah.
I have one last question for you. So if anybody in the audience does have a follow-up or another question, you can get it in a hurry here. Obviously, your work is very inspired by place and space, and very much so natural elements. But coming from a big city, and of course, when you're here in Vancouver, it's a major urban center. Do you ever explore the ideas of the urban in your work? And if so, how do you apply your practice in that sense? And how does it vary from your time in nature?
Yeah, for sure. I guess like when I first started doing art, I was doing a lot of paintings, and you can see the chaos of a Latin American city, and that's also, like I mentioned, like that was like an embodied knowledge that I had from my city, from walking through the city, like the same idea of a walkscape applied to the city. And when I arrived to Vancouver, I remember I did like a lot of walks again, just trying to get familiar with the place, taking photographies, like that's part of my practice. And I did some works about where I collected like found objects from the street in Vancouver. And I was just trying to understand like, I don't know, like the relationship of these leftovers of from this big city. I guess I was just trying to connect with something, and the only thing that I connected with was this sculpture that I did during my walks, and this is sculpture that I did from these found objects that I found during these walks. So yeah, there's a different approach or a different theme when I work in the city. But I guess I lately I've been doing more research about the relationship between humans and more than humans and nature and culture.
You have one other question from Landon. The residency was cut off from the coast with the floods and with the pandemic. You were there with only a couple other artists. Can you talk about the effects of isolation as a productive situation?
I guess like thankfully I was able to leave before the floods, like a week before that. But I guess like the place, Kermios, was like a small village, and I did felt like some kind of isolation. And I guess some of the effects were just to listen to the place, to listen to the wind, because yeah, when I guess like when I was trying to sleep, you can listen to the coyotes and to other animals and to different soundscapes that you cannot appreciate and when you're in the city. So I guess it's different when you're isolated in a natural landscape, well, in comparison to when you're isolated in a city environment, in an apartment. So I guess like I was isolated, but I never felt alone, I guess.
Speaking on sound, we do have a question here from Lisa. Can you tell us a bit more about the process of creating the sound work? What sources you are using, combining, how you arrive at a structure or architecture for the composition? What the sources are they all found in the environment?
The source of the sound that I played was made with this contact mic, just playing the ice. And I made several recordings of that. So I guess I went back to the studio, to my computer, and I worked with Ableton, which is a software, audio editing software. And yeah, that's where I tried to do some research about synthesis, which is not like something that I'm used to. Just learning about all these types of sound synthesis and how to disintegrate. Like I guess like I am interested in deconstructing time in this sound recording, and I'm very interested in just like accessing this granular dimension of the sound. So I use this granular synthesis that's like an option in Ableton, and I did like several iterations of the same composition, and I guess like I just feel attracted to the one that's more noisy.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much. I would like to thank everyone for joining us here today, and of course Esteban for introducing us to your practice and for discussing your time at this Milkameen residency. We at Griffin would also like to thank Emily Carr University's Graduate School for co-sponsoring this residency by providing its sponsorship for the residency fee. And also, this will be archived, so you'll be able to find it in a few weeks' time with captions on our website as well as our YouTube page. And before we sign off here today, I'd also like to mention that Griffin's next exhibition, Per Diem, the Gerd Metzdorf collection, will be opening the weekend of February 4th and will run until early May. So this exhibition will be accompanied by our usual lineup of virtual programs, such as a curator's tour, a conversation on collecting, as well as a panel conversation exploring themes relating to the exhibition. There will also be several other virtual artist talks for you to enjoy in the coming months. And as always, you can register to view the exhibition or for any of our virtual events on our website. So thanks again to everybody and to you, Esteban. I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their Sunday.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming, for attending to my talk. And thank you, Nathaniel.
Take care, everyone. Bye.